So launch versions of fighting games usually are pretty cursed, to say the least. And the reason that's the case is because, like, usually it's like, new game comes out, and the devs are trying a lot of the new things compared to the previous iteration, or sometimes it's a new series, right? And because of that, there's a lot of, like, things that we would see as pretty obvious that you can't really, like, figure out, oh, hey, this is, like, actually a pretty big deal, and this is bad, until players actually get their hands on it. And honestly, people complained a lot, but relative to most fighting games, I think Strive's launch was pretty successful. I think the only launch version of a game that's less cursed was SF6 on launch, which came out after, right? But that being said, because it's a launch fighting game, of course, there's a lot of cursed things about it. So then I'm going to talk about a couple different things that were pretty cursed about Strive's launch. And some of them you probably are thinking of already, and some of them are pretty deep cuts that you might have forgotten.
Our very first man to the top and
So before we actually talk about even anything in-game, this one I actually think is the biggest deal. And it's the input delay. So for those of you who don't know, Strive on PS4 Pro or the PS5 version is the tournament standard currently. And it has, I believe, around 2.5 frames of input delay, which is like 40-something ms. I don't know, editor, tell me if I'm wrong. And yeah, it's pretty good, I would say, compared to, like, especially older fighting games. But it did not always used to be that way. So if you were to play Strive on like a stock PS4, like a base PS4 or a PS4 Slim, the input delay would actually still be a little bit above 4 frames, which is really bad. And launch Strive was at this input delay, which is a huge, huge deal. It means that, like, everything is harder to, like, anti-air, for example. 5D is harder to block. Moves like Leo's run-through are harder to react to. Kai's Future Arc is harder to check. And I think probably the actual biggest deal is that whiff punishing is harder, right? And dashes are harder to check. Making this change in the first patch of the game in August allowed them to basically reduce numbers on a lot of moves, in that they were allowed to make a lot of moves faster. For example, like Chip's Rekka 3 or Anji's Rin, they were allowed to make faster. And they also were allowed to give certain moves less recovery, because now that the input delay is, lower, it is actually more feasible to whiff punish them. That being said, for a launch version, a lot of people, because it was still, like, COVID was still, like, a really big deal. I mean, COVID's still real, but, like, it was, like, peak COVID back then. So there were, like, barely any offline tournaments. So most people actually played on PC, which is significantly faster. Like, PC is actually still faster than PS4 Pro. And people, myself included, play with input delay, right? To actually, slow it down. But especially compared to base PS4, it was a lot slower. So a lot of people actually didn't even experience this, facet of launch Strive. But it was really bad. It definitely felt pretty underwater. And it really, like, it affected balance for sure. Like, Chip was, like, significantly better as a result of this, for example, right? Same with Nago. Those characters benefited a lot from, like, higher input delay. Alright, so you still see Soul on the screen, but I'm not going to talk about Soul yet. The next thing I'm going to talk about is throw, actually, and how broken throws are. Because there's two really important things about throws in the launch version of this game that do not work the same way that they do now. So number one is what people call the throw PRC OS. And what that is if you just do this, you obviously get the PRC now, right? If he jumps your throw, you obviously don't want to get your throw punished, right? But the other important thing is, because you could just do that on reaction. You could react to him jumping your throw and then RC. But if he backdashes your throw, you can't actually RC fast enough before the backdash will, like, finish and then punish your throw, because backdash into throw is 22 frames and RC is 6. So you're not reacting to that, right? Which means you have to preemptively RC to beat this. But if you preemptively RC, often when you hit the throw, your combo is worse. This is with exceptions, obviously. If wall damage is, like, all the way up, blah, 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 right? But generally, it is a lot worse, and your reward is lower on the throw if you do this RC. And there's characters like Nago, where if you were to bite and then RC, then you don't get the buff from bite. And obviously, the other thing is, you don't always want to RC your throw. Like, sometimes you want to throw, and then you want to sit on your 50 meter, and then you want to do this, right? And then do your 50-50. Like, you don't want to have to spend a meter, and them basically changing the way RC interacts with successful throw animation means that that is not the case. So when you do throw PRC, you have to accept that you can get backdashed. Unless you want to like both spend the meter and get a worse combo on your throw, which is pretty big. And the other thing that is mind-boggling, actually, that they let through about throws is that not every character in the game had a 5-frame mash. And what that means is, for those of you who don't know, throw protection in Guilty Gear Strive is 5 frames, such that if you are in block stun or like are getting knocked down or in hit stun or anything, you cannot be thrown on your first 5 actionable frames. And what this translates to is if you know someone's going to throw, you can mash a 5-frame or faster move, and then you can beat throw, right? And not every character in the game used to have this. So Anji with 2P, Axel with 2K, Faust with 5P, Gold Lewis with 2P, Milia with 2P, and Zato with 5P. These moves are all 5 frames or faster in Milia's case now, right? And it's pretty normal. But at the time, these moves were all 6 frames. I think Axel 2K was actually 7. So what that meant is if you were to try and throw them, right, what it would look like is I'm going to make Zato press 2P here because it's 6, right? There you go, right? So Zato is not able to mash on this throw. And this combined with throw PRC means that if you were to, like, if you know that they're going to throw, right? Right now, even if they have meter, if you know, right, you can either mash on the throw because they can't obviously throw PRC if they're getting counter hit, and you can backdash because most people do not want to have to spend that meter unless the throw PRC combo will kill. So generally, mash and backdash are the hard call-out options, and neither of these worked. So characters with 6-frame mashes had no way to actually call out a throw if your opponent had 50 meter. You had to just jump and then take their like meter and then B minus, which is what people do mostly nowadays. Just like even still, just because it's really safe. But like if you like no, you know, like you still couldn't do anything, which is just absurd. So these characters all like suffered a lot as a result. I think like out of all of these characters, the only one that I thought was like anything better than like low tier was Gold Lewis, and we'll get into why that's the case. But Gold Lewis still suffered from this a lot, and it hurt him a lot as a character. But the rest of these characters, like, I think were all literally like the worst characters in the game. I think out of all these, like they were all low tier, and then like Ino was with them in low tier. But yeah, like it was very clear that like all these characters just sucked because they couldn't mash on throws. It was a really big deal. Not to mention all the other downsides of like having your fastest mash be slow. But like, dude, it was really bad. I'm still baiting you. I'm still not talking about Soul. Well, I'm kind of talking about Soul. So the next thing we're going to talk about is FD. So on launch, and it's like this because it was like this in other games, FD added 2 frames to the frame advantage of whatever move you blocked, which means that Soul's Far Slash, which is +2 at the time, if you FD'd it, which you have to, was +4, which is pretty crazy. And it also meant, for example, Soul's Close Slash was +5 if you FD'd it. Leo Backturn H was +7 on FD instead of +5 when you stance cancel it, which is absurd, etc. Like there's a million like crazy examples of this. But the other thing that's really cursed about it is that on Guard Crush, FD used to not push you back. And remember when I said Gold Lewis was still good on launch? This is why. This character's offense was beyond stupid. So if you were to go for something like this, look how far Gold Lewis gets pushed back. Yeah, so not only this would add frame advantage, but it also would not add extra pushback on Guard Crush moves. So the example everybody uses actually is Pot doing Garuda Impact, right? Which is also a really big deal, but I'm using Gold Lewis to highlight this because this character was actually like, I think he was probably top of high tier, despite having a million other problems and being way more flawed than he is now, just because Guard Crush was so stupid. It was like, it's a pretty crazy oversight. So they fixed that, I believe, only in the October patch, actually. They didn't even fix it in the August patch initially, which is wild, but whatever, yeah. So FD also got like pushback increases, so it used to not push you as far, like in general, and they also made it a lot cheaper because FDing moves used to cost more. So yeah, they buffed this mechanic a lot. Alright, so we're finally talking about Soul. So this is the character that got memed the most, and especially because everyone was playing on PC, like, especially on the PC version of the game, this character was, like, insanely broken. Like, if not, like, I still think it's launch Happy Chaos, but if not, like, launch PC Soul is, like, the most broken character in the history of this game. So, let's get into it. Throw PRC is obviously really good for him, right? It working the way it does, but if we're talking about character-specific stuff, let's talk about Far Slash, right? Because this is the move that got memed on all the time. So this move was 100% starter. Nowadays, only close slashes are 100% starters, and I guess Charge Dust. But at the time, it was 5Hs were 100% starters, close slashes were, and then like certain special moves. But Soul's Far Slash was an exception. It was just 100% starter because, I guess, I don't know. And then the other thing that is somehow even more stupid than that, because Soul would actually like do 300 off like every counter hit Far Slash, which is insane. But the other thing that's even more stupid is that it had way less pushback. So right now, like Soul can do this and do like the infinite haha, right? But if you FD him out, you know, it's not gonna last forever. And also Far Slash 5H will whiff if you FD him out, right? So he can't actually like frame trap you mashing a button, right? So a couple things were different. Number one, if he did close slash on block and you didn't FD it, or sorry, if he did Far Slash on block and he didn't FD it, you could get close slash. And the only way I can showcase that now, like even if I run all the way into him, it doesn't happen. So you need to have Wild Assault momentum to make that happen, right? This was just normal. If you blocked, if you blocked Far Slash, which is +2, he then does Close Slash, which is a 7-frame move. So it's a 5-frame gap, except if you mash a 5-frame, it trades, so he gets a combo. And also, remember, not every character has a 5-frame. So, yeah, that was pretty stupid. But also, it's like, oh, okay, you have to FD him, right? Obviously. So, if you FD him, this move becomes +4, right? So, Far Slash is a 6-frame gap, and not every character has a 5-frame move. Because if you remember, if you mash a 6-frame move, it'll trade, and he wins off the trade. Not every character has a move that they can press there, so they would have to press 6P, which Soul can just whiff punish, right? So, yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty impressive because you're spending a lot of meter on FD just to put yourself in a situation that still is really bad. So this situation against like 6-frame characters especially had very little counterplay, but also against 5-frame characters it was still really broken. Yeah, Soul Far Slash was insane, and that's also not it. Let's talk about this move. This move was debatably as absurd as his Far Slash. Soul 6S, I can turn on hitboxes actually, right? So, if you look at this move now, it's pretty good, right? Its main downside is it has pretty long recovery. It's like 40-ish total, I believe. And it's pretty slow, which is 15 frames, right? And the reason it's the case is because Soul's main like weakness is that he doesn't have a traditional like Far Slash poke. And basically everyone has a disjoint Far Slash poke that's like 10 or 11 frames nowadays because this game just power creeps itself a lot, right? And Soul 6S, compared to those, is pretty good. It's just like 5 frames slower, which it has to be, right? Because that's supposed to be this character's weakness. That and the whole, like, he doesn't have a normal 5k in the same vein, right? Because his 5k and Far Slash are very good at different jobs. But this move, on launch, they were like, hey, this move is slow. So to compensate for that, we need to make it anti-air a lot better. And also, we need to make it beat 6Ps, unlike Far Slashes, right? So this move both hit way higher and way lower. And also, that hitbox at, like, Soul's foot was a lot shorter. So you couldn't really beat this move with lows. You had to contest it with, like, your own mids. Which Soul could 6P or 2D. And also, you couldn't 6P it, which is a really big deal. So this move was a low crush that beat 6Ps and also anti-aired by accident. Like, dude, it was crazy. And also, because 5k was level 2 on launch, this used to combo not on crouchers, which is a big deal because 2D was a lot smaller. So he had really consistent reward into, and he did 5k 6s Bandit Revolver, and Bandit Revolver knockdown was a lot better than it is nowadays, because you could get meaty Fafnir off of it at the time, even mid-screen. So, yeah, this character was pretty stupid. There's a bunch of other stuff I'm not bringing up that was really broken about him. Like, for example, Air Bandit Bringer was -2, which is crazy, right? Like I said, the Bandit Revolver knockdown. SDP had, like, no recovery. Like, Zato couldn't punish SDP with 2H because it recovers crouching and it would whiff. Like, this character was broken. Next topic. Alright, so for our last one, I was a little conflicted whether I wanted to do Mei or Leo. And I think Mei's stuff is actually a little funnier, but Leo is actually a lot better than Mei on launch, so I'm going to talk about him. So, couple things. One of them actually got fixed a lot later, so actually let's start with that. This move only got changed in Season 2, but Turbulence, or Pillar, see how he, like, it's a really good knockdown because he can get that off of it, right? So he gets a meaty high-low, which is insane, but if you can believe it, this move used to be a lot better. This move used to hard knockdown. And what hard knockdown means is instead of like teching like he does when he lands, Zato would not get up, like his throw knockdown. So Leo could do a left-right. So he was mixing you all kinds of ways off of Turbulence, which is a hit that is not the hardest for him to get. And the other thing I wanted to bring up before we talk about the last thing is that remember that this was +7 on FD, which is a huge deal because dash 2k is 8 frames. So him doing back turn H dash 2k was a 1 frame gap, which is unbelievable. Turbulence hard knockdown only got changed in the Season 2 patch on June 10th of 2022, which is a year after the game launched. So this character had that hard knockdown for an entire year, which is crazy. So the last thing I want to talk about, which is the funniest thing about this character to me, is that remember how I said they lowered the input delay and that allowed them to speed up moves? Well, I was mostly telling the truth, but this move, everybody's favorite, is white. See how it says 25? This move used to be 23 frames. Which means that with the increased input delay, it was effectively like 21 in terms of how hard it was to react to. So imagine this move, but it is 4 frames harder to react to. Which is just insane because, like, I don't know, Tempest has won, like, what, like 5 or 6 majors now? And Tempest, like, signature is the, like, in a clutch moment, like, everyone in the crowd blocked this white or threw it, but the dude on stage is getting hit by it. Like, in the clutch, right? Because that's the type of move that this is. It, like, preys on your opponent, like, being nervous or playing bad, blah, 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 right? Like, it's a mental stack move. And the fact that this move is already so crazy in the clutch moments, and it used to be 4 frames harder to react to, is just hilarious to me. Because, like, I feel like I don't even have to explain it. Like, if you watch, like, any major for this game, chances are Tempest won it because, you know, but also is that Tempest won it using this move a lot, like a whole lot. So I don't know. I feel like they generally had like a pretty good idea of like how reactable things should be in this game, but with this move they were like, oops, we messed up. This should be way easier to react to. So anyway, those were 5 things about launch Guilty Gear Strive that I thought were really, really, really cursed. I'm sure there's a lot more because I left out a lot. For example, I left out Mei's 2S and her command grab combo. I left out the Nago throw throw fast RC 6H bug. I left out how bad like the low tiers were, like Anji and Faust and Zato and Milia were like unplayably bad. You know, I'm sure there's a whole lot, but let me know what I'm forgetting in the comments anyway. And also, actually, let me know if you would be interested in a video about like history of like characters through patches in this game. Like, I'm gonna start with Soul, obviously, but like, oh, okay, how good was Soul on launch? How good was he in the October patch? How good is he like 2.0? Blah, blah, blah. Because I think that is an idea I kind of would like to do. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you later.